Hi, good day everyone. My name is Anton Sevilla Liu from Fukuoka, Japan, and I'm a researcher in Japanese philosophy of education. One of the things I have to deal with doing this kind of work is that people seem to have a very, I don't know, a bit of an extreme set of stereotypes about Japan and education. So, on one hand, there are those who think that Japanese education is the most boring, rote, cookie cutter thing there is. And then there are those who think more along the lines of Studio Ghibli and Zen, who think that Japanese education is so spiritual and creative. Yeah, and well, the truth is, of course, a lot more mundane, but also more complicated than that. And I'm going to try to look at that, to look at this reality, at least through the lens of philosophy and the tensions present within philosophy. So I'll be looking at this philosopher called Watsuji Tetsuro. He is pretty much the most important modern ethicist of Japan, pre-war, wartime, and post-war period, and he is very well known for his relational ethics. So I look at all of his work and I show how, from his earliest work on climate and culture, how he saw the human being as emplaced in relationships and in a particular space, in a particular place. And then I developed this through his Systematic Ethics. Volume 1 was in 1937. The idea of the practical act nexus of how we cooperate with each other and connect with each other through behavior. I look at his view of space and time and how this connect to relationality. And then I developed these through the wartime volume, Ethics Volume 2, 1946, where he talks about culture as what binds people together and what makes them relatable to each other. So all of this is a setup for something that isn't very often talked about. Watsuji actually had an idea of education. So for him, education was not an individual thing, but just like his ethics, it's a relational view of education as how we learn our place within this practical nexus of acts. And I take up here a book, a short, very short book that he wrote in 1938, simply entitled Confucius. And this book, if I'm not mistaken, has never been discussed in English before. It's actually very rarely discussed even in Japanese. But I look at this book and really try to see, both the positive sides and also the limitations of Japan's view of education, especially surrounding the question of creativity versus tradition and its relationship with Bildung. So I look at just three main points that I argue here. First is that Watsuji does have a view of learning that does have some similarities, connections with Bildung's theory, combining the social and individual. And like Bildung's theorists, secondly, Watsuji does suggest a view of general education through Confucius. But third, if we look at his view of Confucius very carefully, and I do, and we even look at how he interprets the Analects of Confucius and things like that, we start to see a major collision with Bildung's theory and the limitations in his view of the individual. So that's the setup, and for the details, I would love it if you could have a look at the article. But basically, I really try to examine the different parts of Watsuji. On one hand, the parts where he's able to argue for a sense of cultural and social change. On the other hand, how his view of hermeneutics can lead to a more traditional view. And I will end with this very, very difficult idea of actually how the question of creativity versus tradition is actually going to boil down to the difficult relationship, the very abstract relationship with space and time. And so, if you're interested in this sort of thing, it would be great if you check out my article, and I would love to hear from you what you think. Thank you. Cheers.